The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Wise words from someone who led by example. The ground-breaking, or should I say cloud-cracking, Amelia Earhart, who made history first as a passenger, but that wasn't enough. And her story is as mysterious as it is inspiring, with recent insights continuing to color in the details between the lines. It's a timeless story, so today, we're going to revisit this history maker's life from start to finish. I'm your pilot, Nostalgic Nick, and today we're putting Amelia Earhart under the scope.
What kind of a sandwich was it?
Chicken sandwich.
Pilot extraordinaire, and the subject of our favorite mysteries. If you enjoy our deep dive, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you can navigate through all our latest excursions. But without further ado, we have liftoff, the taste of flight. Amelia Mary Earhart was named after both her grandmothers and was supposed to be quiet, frilly, and follow, not lead. Problem was, Amelia wasn't having any of that. Biographers credit her upbringing. She saw her mother stuck in society's bounds, married to an alcoholic husband who wasn't getting far in his career, and their upper-class wiggle room was tight on funds. So Amelia learned fitting in wasn't necessarily a recipe for happiness, and although it takes a lot of guts to go against the grain, Amelia was all about being hands-on. Amelia's mother indulged her tomboy ways. She and her sister Pidge went on adventures around the neighborhood and nearby woods.
The things which many little girls were not allowed to do. We were quite happy tomboys.
Amelia even fashioned herself a makeshift ramp inspired by a roller coaster she saw in St. Louis. She put it on the roof, climbed into a wood box of a sled, and took off. Next thing she knew, the girl was bleeding and bruised and totally in love with the feeling of flight. Sickness in war. Insatiably curious, Amelia studied chemistry and even excelled at it, which I think deserves an award of its own. And as it turns out, that would serve her very well for her next passion project. During a 1917 visit to Canada, Amelia met wounded soldiers returning from the brutality of World War I, and many of those soldiers were pilots. Amelia then changed tracks and attended college to work as a nurse to better care for those wounded veterans, just in time for the influenza outbreak. A modest 500 million people are said to have caught influenza in those years. One of those was the future Miss Lindy, Amelia Earhart, and she was hit hard and hospitalized with pneumonia and the worst perpetual sinus infection in history. They had to do operations to try and clear her respiratory system, which only succeeded in giving Amelia migraines. It took months to heal, so Amelia passed the time studying mechanics. But finally back on her feet, Amelia went to an air show and got to ride in a plane. And this sealed the deal. Amelia Earhart was going to learn how to fly. Touching the sky. As the 20s drew to a close, aviators Wilmer Stoltz and Lewis Gordon were planning a flight across the Atlantic. Pilot Charles Lindbergh had done the first non-stop trip the year prior, so this one needed something special. Promoters looked for the first woman to join the flight. Some say Amelia happened to look like Lindbergh and that helped her get chosen. Either way, Amelia wound up on that flight, and when she touched down in Wales, she landed as an international celebrity.
On this flight, really no bad weather at all, except a few little rain squalls.
But wait, Amelia thought. I didn't do the flying. Her job was to keep the ledger, but Amelia didn't think that was enough to earn that fame. She desired to personally do the flying. And she would, and much more. The 99s. 30 countries and 5,000 members. An organization all about uplifting women with dreams of flight. And it started with Amelia Earhart, who herself had a pretty strong role model thanks to lessons with Anita Snook. You know, the Earhart before Amelia flew in. Amelia knew she had a lot to prove in these lessons, and reportedly would sleep in her pilot gear so it looked used and looked more experienced. She cut more and more of her hair off to fit in with the style of pilots. And Amelia Earhart began to set her own records. She flew an autogyro at over 18,000 feet. And crossed the Atlantic by herself in 1932, breaking a time record doing it on the 5th anniversary of Lindbergh's flight.
And there received a real English welcome.
She did a lecture tour around America, encouraging women to follow their own paths. Though Amelia was a unique case in feminism, she didn't really take on that label herself, only wanting women to tackle new feats. Earhart lived by her own philosophy of doing things, quote, for the fun of it. That's where the 99s come in, with Amelia as its first president. To this day, it is dedicated to helping women achieve their piloting dreams. Amelia also promoted a clothing line that put function at the forefront, made exclusively, quote, for the woman who lives actively. The next big goal. Never mind the first woman, Amelia Earhart became the first person to fly across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
It's much easier to fly the Atlantic Ocean now than it was a few years ago.
Amelia might have been in the air more than on the ground in the following years, making a flight from Los Angeles to Mexico City, and from there to New York. Along the way, setting women's speed records too, just for the fun of it. But she had to scratch one more big itch, a flight around the world. For this trip along the equator, Amelia bought a Lockheed 10E Electra and teamed up with Captain Harry Manning, Fred Noonan, and Paul Mance for navigation and technical know-how. The trip was intended to have her hop from Oakland to Hawaii, then Australia, India, Africa, Florida, and then complete the circle. But problems hit the team in the first half. Flight issues and a hard takeoff on a runway caused a huge delay. The flight instead went east, and now it was just Amelia and Noonan, this time taking off from Florida, and they basically made the reverse of the first planned trek, and finally reached New Guinea. By this point, they were 22,000 miles down and 7,000 left. Next stop, Howland Island. But Howland is famously small. Its highest point is just 20 feet above the water. Amelia and Noonan planned on using the stars to guide them along with the maps. And the US Coast Guard ship the Itasca was stationed nearby to give off a smoke plume as a landmark. Or so they planned. Fatal fallacies. There was heavy cloud cover and visibility was non-existent. And those maps were inaccurate. They had Howland a whole 6 miles away from its real location. And for all her broken records, Amelia was pretty old school and used her gut and old-fashioned methods to fly, even when technology improved. But the team also didn't pack some radio equipment. It was assumed to leave more room for fuel, but that equipment could have gotten their messages farther. And on top of that, the plane ended up carrying 50 gallons less than its fuel capacity. So, the pair now struggled to find any valuable landmarks. The Coast Guard ship made some replies to their updates, but Amelia didn't answer. Finally, the Itasca got a message from Earhart saying, quote, "We are running north and south." Those were the last words they heard from her. Thinking the plane went down nearby, the crew tried searching, but rescue efforts were called off on July 19, 1937. Earhart and Noonan were declared lost at sea, but where did they end up? The biggest theories. President Roosevelt personally sanctioned a $4 million rescue effort to find these two legendary pilots. 9 ships and 66 aircraft, but all in vain. In the vacuum of mystery, theories flourished. Some placid, some insidious. One popular belief says the two were captured by the Japanese. World War II was a few short years away, and Japan was on an imperial parade across the region. And from there, the theories branch out. The two either crashed and sank in the ocean, or landed on Gardner Island, now called Nikumaroro Island. Back then, it was classified as uninhabited. So why did planes flying overhead see signs of human life just weeks after Amelia went missing? The hunt for Amelia's Electra. Just about every theory has some proof and reasons why it's wrong. Expeditions to Gardner Island apparently turned up cosmetics jars, a woman's shoe, plexiglass, improvised tools, and a bone that might be the human finger. But the trail goes cold there. The island had no DNA evidence of Amelia or Noonan, but a 2018 study of more bones found on Gardner Island in the 40s compared pictures of Amelia and her clothing sizes and called them a likely match. On the other hand, in 2019, the group who found the Titanic could not find the Electra anywhere in the surrounding ocean. Nothing was found around Howland either.
We came with 2 ships robotic vehicles, we had a land-based team.
And at this time, there was a photograph from a retired federal agent that facial recognition experts say could very well be Amelia and Noonan on a different island. And this gave fuel for the Japanese capture theory, or even more salacious, the spy theory. Then, as recently as 2021, it was thought maybe, just maybe, we picked up an image of the wreckage in Gardner Island Lagoon. And while heading north and south might be the last words heard from Amelia, radios in California and Hawaii supposedly picked up the words, quote, "Still alive, better hurry, tell husband all right." Along with, "Can you read me? Can you read me? This is Amelia Earhart, please come in." And if this is true, it may be safe to conclude Amelia lived long enough to find somewhere stable to deliver these messages, and was sitting there waiting for an answer, just like we are today. Amelia Earhart lives on for her mystery, but more importantly for her determination. Her sister, who went on so many adventures with her growing up, has said she wants Amelia remembered for her love of flight and her dream of inspiring others. Well, Amelia certainly reshaped the landscape of opportunities for women and made everyone question the boundaries. And she did it all for the fun of it. But still, the aura of mystery remains. Do you think we'll ever know what really happened to Amelia Earhart? Which theory do you believe is most likely true? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love for some closure for such a champion of the skies. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so you can fuel up on nostalgia anytime. From all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.